Good evening, everybody. How's weather? Weather outside is cold.
It's good.
Already. Now we're back. Yeah. Anyway, now we study to Salam. Part and ground and part. What is it? Ground and part. Salam. Ground and part. Anyway, we talk about ground part very long time ago, right? This is a one day, if you do effort, you again some kind of your mind become they can't part. Right? Yes? Again.
Generate.
We are generate. This is not we said part of the ground that we are here, we are not connection. Not we talk about whatever we talk, we have to generate this things. Actually also many religions they believe the God. God is always the God. God created everything. We believe in always, I don't know, we say God or not, Buddha, I don't know if we say God or not. We say Buddha. Buddha was not always Buddha. After he became Buddha, he was Buddha, but before he is not Buddha, same as us. And we also have opportunity to want to become God. We believe all the sentient things as seat of God, seat of Buddha, maybe God, maybe not. He said everybody has a seat. When you develop, the causes, conditions, and one day the result will come. This is or maybe it also a reason why. Buddhism always say you have to generate the path and ground, but who gets? Who has the experience? Who did before? And, this we say, for example, I don't know who is right now in Mahayana. He did, it's not too long. He did very bad things, magic. He killed a lot of people. Then after he become enlightened. Also, Buddha's term, before Buddha can become Buddha, he's same as us. He born child, he get married, he has king, he also have son, right? Buddha have son. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then they become enlightened. Even we can check here right now who we could practice this kind of is a different person. They can show, They show if you do really effort, something works. You have something to cultivate, develop something mind. Step by step. If you do effort or not, this is our choice. Therefore Buddha said, every all sentient, single sentient being has Buddha's nature, then it depends our or your effort or practice, right? And also we are goal.
So our goal to do the study, our goal of study is to be able to develop whatever study that we do, to be able to develop that in our mind. So we're not talking about a ground and path that cannot be generated or developed in our mind. So the external ground, like the earth, the mud, the ground that's made of earth, stone and so forth. So that ground and the stones, the wood or the trees, we cannot generate that in our mind, right? We don't have a relationship with those kind of material things. So the ground and path that we are studying here, we're talking about, that's the type of mind that can be generated in our mind. So a part of our mind becomes that mind. So whether we'll be able to generate that or not depends on how much we study and how much we put into practice. So as we know, we can change, we can transform our minds, right? The bad minds, the good minds, and so forth. So the type of mind that's called compassion and love, if we make effort, then we'll be able to generate those minds and continue. So the mind is a kind of thing that is clear and that knows, right? And so so that which is clear and knows or cognizes is called mind. So actually the existence has two, permanent existence and an impermanent existence. And then in the impermanent existence, or the functional things, there are three types: the matter, consciousness, and non-associated compositional factors. So there isn't any impermanent existence or functioning thing that is not included within those three things. So when we talk about the form, and then form and form source, and there are two different things, like, so sometimes we talk about the form as a matter, and so in that case, then the sound will be a form, the taste will be form and so forth.
Zui Tama Yuji Tam will talk about it or something.
So I think it would be better to say matter, instead of saying form, not to confuse ourselves. So when we say matter, it's everything that can be seen, that can be tasted, that can be heard. It's a matter here.
And the Shiba doing my
And then consciousness is, of course, something that we cannot perceive. We cannot see, right? Visually. And so that which is clear and knows or cognizes is called mind or consciousness.
And the Pembo Shiba Kongaman demand the Jetana, and the Shiba Manta imported and then the Jetro. Peshi Kongaman the Jetana.
So that which is neither form nor consciousness is called non-associated compositional factor.
What did the Dharma was Latter, Southern Latter, Shiba.
And so anyway, so here the path and ground that we're talking about is all a type of consciousness. So consciousness is the object of knowledge, is it or not? Consciousness is an object of knowledge, is it?
I think so, yeah. Should be.
Is it?
I think it has to be.
Yes, anybody see direction?
I would say knowledge in the sense of, do you mean learning or experience?
Object of knowledge means that which can be known, right? Anything that can be known is the object of knowledge, right? So is consciousness object of knowledge?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Not, you don't, 진짜 뭐 그거 말이야. 예와 주시는 게 진짜 가르는 다 예와 주시는.
So anything that exists is the object of knowledge, right? So anything that exists, so you have to know that anything that exists is the object of knowledge. Anything that exists can be known by mind, right? There isn't anything that exists and cannot be known by mind. If it cannot be known by mind, then it doesn't exist. So as long as it exists, it is known by mind, right? It's the object of knowledge. And so therefore, you can say, yes, consciousness is object of knowledge because it exists.
시자 예와 야자 다 저러면 되지 그래요.
So we say that, the object of knowledge, existence, and established base and so forth. So they all are synonymous, mutually inclusive.
오케이, 좋아. 다 시바 등림으로 해서나 갈라.
And so is consciousness a thing?
Yeah, I think so.
It is functioning thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Okay, it's good. Yeah. You have to know. Okay. 다 시바대 가서. 원은 남가대 시자를 해서나.
What about the space? Is it an object of knowledge?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Because 다 예와 필요.
Because
It exists.
it exists, yeah.
다 남가대 못 타버리거든요.
Is space impermanent? Impermanent?
No.
Is space impermanent?
No.
Is it?
No. It's not. It's not impermanent. No. It's permanent.
좋아.
뭐이 말했어? 거의 말했어. 뭐이 했어?
다 답변 되지 가죠. 답변 되지라고.
What would be an example of a permanent thing?
But
The idea of the color red, or the idea of, like, if I think of my home, that's also permanent. Or
ready?
yeah, the idea of my home, the idea of ideas in general are permanent, right? Because they are.
전질.
Huh?
전질 딱 봤어.
되지 딱 되고.
Yeah.
가지 남가대 답변 되지라고.
Yeah, so usually space would be an example of permanent things.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
space is there all the time, right? It doesn't disintegrate.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so that's the permanent.
Okay.
There is something.
Hey, I have to find something, okay? And then don't you say don't tamaro.
So the reality, emptiness
Yeah,
is permanent. The emptiness is emptiness all the time, right?
yeah.
근데 다 저러고 신도 안에 따발이 못 따발잖아.
What about the trees outside there? They are permanent or impermanent?
Yeah, those are
Would space be something you would term as a non-associated compositional factor? Would that come under that category?
몇부터 재료에서? 남카리.
내 문제 가게 이어왔으나 너무 과시켰어요.
응?
내 문제도 가게 이어왔으나.
So non-associated composition factor is the division of what?
Well, it's something that is neither mind nor matter.
No matter, right? So, so anyway, when we were talking about the permanent thing and the impermanent thing, right? Impermanent thing, there are three divisions. Impermanent thing has three divisions, and those are mind, matter, and non-composition factor, right? Non-associated composition factor.
So it can't.
So all these three are impermanent things.
So space can't be a non.
Associated composition factor because it's not an impermanent thing.
Even like just the name too, compositional factor, it kind of rules out
That's
space.
right.
Yeah. So,
It's a composition, right? Composed of many things together.
그때서 땅을 하고 대내를 다 달라들란다 하는 게 남까지 되지만 또 하고 좀 왔어.
So now you understand why the space is not non-associated composition factor? Why?
Well, it's never changing. It's neither consciousness nor matter. But it just is. It just is.
It is what?
You got me kind of stumped on this.
because it's permanent.
Yeah. all the
Yeah.
Well, what would what's the criteria for permanence?
Well, if it is, let's say, if it is a non-associated compositional factor, then it has to be impermanent thing.
Okay.
Okay. So because space is not impermanent thing, therefore it cannot be, non-associated compositional factor.
But he's asking what's the criteria for permanent thing?
What's the criteria?
Yeah.
Like you're saying that definition?
Yeah.
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 답변이니까 셔서.
아니 취다 끼지만 많이 계시는 거다. 그래서 끼지만 많이 봐. 내가 못하고 말이야. 취다 끼지만 많이 볼수 됩니까? 못하고 많이 봐라. 못하고 많이
쉬어도 안 깨지고
많이 볼수 됩니까?
쉬어도 안 깨지고 쉬어도 쉬어도 안 깨지고 많이 봐. 가리 쉬던 거?
시든가 시든가 못 봐서 시든가.
몇 번째?
취다 끼지만 많이 봐야 돼. 끼지만 많이 봐.
쉬어도 깨지고 많이 봐. 쉬어도 봐.
자꾸 양쪽에 취세 안 와서 취당.
쉬어도 깨지고 많이 봐서는 네가 말해. 쉬어도 깨지고 많이 봐. 쉬던 거 와서는 신나 샤워.
더 내려와.
쉬어도 안 깨지고 많이 봐. 쉬던 거.
딱 되게.
다음 생절에. 그러면 쉬어도 안 깨지고 많이 봐서는 다 지금 깨지고 나면 된 거야. 쉬어도 안 깨지고 많이 봐서는.
취다다 진짜만 하다가 간지 끼지만 많이 봐도 다 되는 거 간지. 끼지만 또 끼지 움직임도 들어. 대 많이 게 되세요. 추행이지. 추행거 여러.
So
추행.
you can say in simple way you can say that which exists but does not disintegrate.
That which exists but does not disintegrate.
But does not disintegrate. It's a permanent thing.
No, when I think of space,
Yeah.
I generally think in terms of non-exist, that there is nothing there. The opposite of existence. In other words, space is a vacuum.
Yes.
And,
But there is a vacuum, right?
right, but it has no definable, well, at least to me, it has no definable qualities. In other words, I couldn't describe what, well, it
Yeah.
couldn't be it couldn't be permanent if it had factors that made it up. That, you add,
Yes.
a cup of this, a
Yeah,
pinch
that's
of
right.
that.
Uh-huh.
So I view it as sort of non-existent
Mhm.
and in and of its own right, devoid.
Yeah, you can say that way. Yeah.
But not non-existent.
Well, you can say, when you say an empty cup, the cup that doesn't contain or doesn't have any existence of water or anything, so that non-existent of those things is a space. So because there's nothing there, therefore we can move around. If there's things already there, then we can't move on. So there's non-existent of those things. So you can see non-existent in that way. But the space, the whole itself is non-existent is not right because there's space, therefore we can move. If there's no space, if the space doesn't exist, when you say space, means like non-existent of something there, right? But space itself exists, because space is there, because there's a space, therefore we can move around.
I mean, I heard one definition in English which is easier to understand, which is the absence of obstruction.
Obstruction.
Yeah, absence of any physical obstruction is space. So it's not actually like substantial in any way, but it exists. I mean, we can know space because we say I'm going into that space over there, or there's some space over here. Like, there's space which makes available to have, matter.
Move around.
Yeah.
Now, is space required for all phenomenon to exist, impermanent phenomenon?
It's not required. It's not like it's required, for other things to exist.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that. You can have things without space, right?
But impermanent things?
Why not?
I'm just trying to imagine an impermanent thing which has no spatial dimensions or anything.
Well, what do you mean? I mean, of course, you
Not
need to
all-
have the space outside of it, but
Yeah,
within itself, you don't have to have space.
yeah. I mean, not all impermanent things, I guess, need space.
No.
That's true. But a lot of them do.
Yeah, some they do.
The matter needs space. I mean, if you talk about matter, it has to be some substance which is
Yeah.
aggregated. In order to aggregate, then there must be space. I can't imagine any type of aggregation without space.
Without space, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. If you think in that way, yes.
Everybody think of that.
하고서 건드려야 돼. 여봐라. 초 가야 동안지 여봐라. 남파버려서 그래. 동바버려. 동샤버려서. 그것은 되지 몰라. 나가서는 동바 매버는 초용을 말았어. 초디 초 가야 동안지 여봐라. 그 동바버려서. 동바가서 동바서 동바서 열어. 남파서 동바서 열어.
동반이 거기까 동반이 이거 보세요. 동반이 영어를 가지는데 추리에나 동반이 없잖아요. 단다 대대 길라 말고 길에 동화.
그만 되게 시간 말아. 그래서 남과 동바서 동바대. 대단한 동바서 결국 많이 되게 쉬워. 그만해서 있어.
그 간에
남편 동바서 동바대.
그 상담다 가지. 네. 저 좋아하는 동화예요.
되도요.
그래요.
내 달라졌으면
그런데요 말어.
그럼
Yeah, this is makes sense. Yeah. But 당 가서 관계 상담을 가지. I'm not saying 100% why.
so inside of this wood there's a space. Inside of the wood
The
there's a
wood
space.
is obstructing the space. I mean, technically,
So
if
it's obstructing the space.
we took an electron microscope, you will see that there is actually space within the wood. It looks solid to you and me because our eyes are relatively gross, but in between, particles, there is still space.
Yes.
And then even on an atomic level, between like nucleus and electrons, there is also space. I mean, but generally we will say that this is.
What about this metal? Inside this metal?
Yeah, same.
You said?
I mean, but generally we will say that these things, in a rough way, the space is obstructed by the table.
Yeah.
As long as the table is here, like I can place this paper where the table is. It's blocking the space.
Yeah.
But if I move the table, then the paper can use the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's away from the table, right? I'm saying within the table itself, inside this wood,
I mean,
inside this metal here.
if we wanted to go like totally precisely, like within the matter, like a single, the most minute particle of matter that you can break things into, the space is obstructed in the same way that the table is obstructing the space here. So there is no space there. I mean, the way that we think of space. It's being obstructed, but it isn't destroyed, because if you move that matter, the space is available.
No, yeah, of course that's there, but I mean, for that thing to exist, for that thing to exist, there has to be space.
I think so, yeah, actually.
For that thing to exist.
So if you think of a particle, like the smallest piece of anything you can smash things into, in order for that particle to be a particle, it has to have a front and sides and a back. It has to have directionality, like some way of being touched or aggregated with other particles. So there must be space within it. I mean, there's space between the middle of it and the left side of it, and space.
No, that's different space.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the space inside of it. See, this is outside, and this is outside here. This is outside, this is outside, this is outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Inside piece, there's a space or not? I understand what you mean by, like the parts and, the directional parts. That's different.
But I still think the inside there has to be space, because in order to say there's the top and the bottoms, like something.
No. We're not talking about that one. We're not talking about the top and bottom. We're talking about the inside of the wood. Inside of that pillar. Let's say that pillar is whole. It's a solid wood.
Okay.
Inside of that pillar, there is a space inside that pillar.
I think.
Not outside.
I think yes. The space is still there. It's just obstructed by the pillar. It doesn't.
Not that kind of space.
It doesn't become
It's pillar
non-existent.
space.
Huh?
There is space in the pillar, but it's pillar space. There is space in the wood, but it's wood space. And space also changes. So space is not permanent. It expands and
Oh, it is
contracts.
permanent, we just learned that.
No, yeah, that's true.
No, space is not permanent.
Yeah, it is.
Because, you, hear me out, it expands and contracts. Space expands. Scientifically, it is proven that outer space, not just in the world, but outer space, the universes are contracting, expanding all the time.
Universal, not the space.
Yeah, but the space itself
Space stays space all the time. Space stays empty all the time. You have thing there and you move it here. Space is there all the time. Even if you have here or there's a space there all the time. It's just the movement of the thing makes difference.
So with the table, what kind of space are you talking about? If not the space that makes available directionality, what space?
Well, I mean, like the solid things. Let's say solid things. Do they have a space inside of solid things?
The space still exists.
I mean,
but
inside
it's
of
obstructed.
this bead. Is there? I mean, not the one that you put the string through,
Yeah.
but other part.
Body or meat.
Yeah,
sure.
inside of that, is there a space there?
I mean, if we just say by our common perception, no. Like, so if the bus comes and it's full of people and there's not 1 inch where I can go in, they will say there's no space in here.
No, not that kind of space. No, there is still space. There's a small amount of space. Not a space big enough to fit you, but there's a small space, to fit the air through.
Yeah.
So inside this, is there such kind of space? Let's say just air.
Yeah.
Just the air go through the wood
Yes.
inside.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's a space. Yes.
Yeah.
If it goes through the wood.
Yeah, we know. Like, there are all kinds of particles which we can't see that are bombarding us all the time. I mean, there are things passing
Yeah,
through
no,
us
not
now.
that kind of space. Still, I mean, like there's the wood here, right? So the air goes through it,
Yeah, there
through
are.
here, and then it comes from here.
Yeah, there are particles. Actually, matter
No.
is passing through that wood right now that we can't perceive, but it's happening.
Matter.
Matter, yeah. In order for it to go through means there must be space between the
Yeah,
particles of the
no.
wood.
If it goes through it, definitely there's a space.
Yeah, so there's space there.
Oh.
Yeah.
But if you blew a fan on the wood, it wouldn't come on the other side.
That's
What?
that's
If you
different
blew a
than
fan?
yeah.
Oh, no, I don't have to. That's gross air, right? That's
Yeah.
a gross air. But there's a subtle air that goes through.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it?
Yes, there is. Yeah, there are. An example would be like radiation. So if there is a television signal being sent out, it's a type of radiation being broadcast. It's passing through us. It's everywhere
it goes
around
through.
us.
It goes around. It's also
It's
that wave that goes around. Wherever there's a space, it goes around there.
it
It doesn't go through
Not
there.
directly.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But there
I don't think it goes through there.
there
The wave doesn't go.
are like what are they called? They have a new I forget what they're called. They're very small particles that are
Quarks.
difficult to detect, not quarks, but they developed this huge array to sense them in the bottom of like a mile deep mine, because after they it's hard to block out other types of radiation from the sun, but if they put these sensors in the bottom of this mine, they can now detect these incredibly small particles that are radiating all over in the universe from the time of the Big Bang, and they're passing through me and you now. We just don't detect them. They're that small. They're,
Neutrinos.
yeah, neutrinos, right. So particles which are so small, matter, that can pass through the space available in other matter. I mean, it seems,
So it
solid.
goes through the solid wood
Yeah.
and come out.
Or
from
like
the
they
bottom.
say,
It passes through the earth, through the whole entire earth and out the other side.
or they say consciousness goes through nothing stops. They can go through material things.
Yeah, that's consciousness. Yeah, consciousness is different.
Uh,
That's different. We're talking about space, air. If the air can pass through, then there's a space, right? If something can pass through, then there's a space. If without space, nothing can pass through, right?
Yeah.
You're to go into the bus, there has to be space. If there's no, it's completely blocked, you can't go in. But if something can go in there, then there's a space there. So
Not the consciousness.
So anyway, so you going back, getting back to your question about is space required for anything to exist? I guess then it is required, right? Without space, nothing can exist.
At least matter. At least so far as matter is
Matters,
concerned.
yeah,
Consciousness, I don't know.
yeah.
Or by space, void, actual void that is not made up of anything
Anything, yes.
that we can recognize.
Yeah.
So that would be considered permanent.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Space itself. In general, space itself is a permanent.
Could you guys have
Is there a difference between emptiness and space?
what?
Is there a difference between emptiness and space?
동바당, 남과 다 동바스.
동바
동바 동일이 동바다당, 남과 동바리는 되게 와요.
대가 대세시다 가스.
So emptiness, like the reality you're talking about.
Like if nothing can
이거는
exist
돼야
on
되지 말고
space,
그냥 들어.
So if you're talking about, when you say emptiness, emptiness is like absence of something.
right?
So it means it means like something is empty of something. Means like something is not that thing like that. So that's what we're talking about, emptiness.
Yeah.
The space is different from that.
Yes, but if things need space to exist, then does emptiness also need space to exist?
동차 보고는 동차세라. 동배 동차도 남과 동배 동차되라. 동차 보고는 저 동차 보고는 동이 같은 동차 보고서 동니세도 고간지라. 고든 동니지라. 필요하다는 동차 보고서.
통짜로 가지.
뭐 동바대 보고 그랬어. 남과 동바도 보고 그랬어.
탈까지.
먼저 다이스는 먼저 참아도 보고 말이야. 저 먼저 속에서 배워도 보고 그랬어. 답을처럼 보고 그랬어. So not for everything, you need a space. You need a space for the impermanent things. Let's say it matters, that is. Matters.
Because emptiness also is empty of inherent existence, right? So that's why.
나도 그래. 남과 동바세야 당. 동반이 되게 몇 콜라가 돼. 지금 거의 엄청 많죠.
The space and the emptiness we're talking about is different, right?
컴플리트.
But I just my question was a silly question, but it was because you say everything needs space to exist. But then I'm mistaken because these are two different things altogether.
Oh yes,
And,
yes.
Yeah. So
딱 봐도 뭐다고 그래요. 양치 동바 그런 데 가지. 양 차도 정치 그거 있고. 대선 그거 있어.
Matters, yes.
Matter,
In the matters, yeah, maybe you need a space to exist, but not for everything. Not for everything that exists. So you don't have to depend on space, but you have to depend on what do you call that? Dependence, interdependence. You have to depend on interdependence. So everything has to depend. Everything requires interdependent. Without that, nothing exists. Nothing can exist. So you can say the northern direction, the eastern direction, the western direction. So they're all different ones. You can say. So because there's an obstruction, therefore there's a space. The space depends on the obstruction, right? Something that is to be obstructed, something that's there. So that that's when there's nothing there, then you can say space there. So what is impermanent? Impermanence.
Means what? Right.
What is the definition of impermanence?
Something that doesn't need anything to depend upon.
Huh?
No, impermanent.
Impermanent. Impermanence.
Yeah, something.
What's the definition of impermanence?
Phenomenon that is dependent, arises dependently upon other factors. It doesn't exist in and of itself. It's a confluence of different.
But that's also true about the permanent things. Okay? Not necessarily impermanent.
I think it changes moment by moment, and also able to function. It's functional if it's impermanent.
계지를 뒤로 전체 좀 있어. So that which I thought you were going to say by depending on cause and condition. If you said that would be right. So other things don't have to depend on cause and conditions, but impermanent things has to depend on cause and conditions. And so anyway, so by depending on cause and condition, that which disintegrates moment by moment is called impermanence.
Now, I have another question. If space is permanent and is not dependent upon anything else.
Not dependent on cause and condition, but it depends on other things.
Well, wouldn't space only be necessarily defined when there's something in it? So an impermanent factor is in space. Were there nothing in space, how can it be said to exist? Isn't it dependent upon something to exist in it to define it as the void space?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, that kind of dependence, yes.
It's a positive.
That's kind of there's that kind of dependence, but not dependence, dependence on of cause and conditions. For instance, that 남파다 맞아 지금 요바들 따내가 디 요바 디 마가와 있을 때 나빠스 거라서. 나디 요바들 안에 돌았어. 디라 뜨고 걸었어. 그래. 토와디가 뜨고 왔다. 토와지 여전다 대매거든 내가 나빠스 거라.
토와에다 대매거든 남각 대매거든.
다들 잊어버렸어 그래서는. 다들 땡겨 왔어.
땡
That's right. So it depends on that, but it doesn't. It's not arising in dependence upon cause and conditions.
남배 빼잖아. 저러나 땡배 비차서는 저러나 안에 그래 딘게 때문에 잘하는 거죠.
So if it exists, then it definitely has to be in the dependent rising. So that has to arise by depending on something, but not necessarily depending on cause and conditions.
내가 지금 저대와대 나도 식당 왔다 나도 로종 딱 나도 도쇼 되게 와서 나 올때 맞는 삼성도 마무리돼 모르는 거 제대로 되네.
So the reason why I ask you what is impermanence, the definition of impermanence is because you're studying high level ones. What you're studying is pretty high level, but then if you don't know the low ones, then you get confused. So that's the reason why Geshe he asked.
네. 저로도 나 주로 거기 힘도 들었어. 속으로 정해져 시바로 정해져.
So what about the plants and trees? Do they have mind? Do they have life?
It depends. Mind, I don't think so. But life, it depends how you define that. How do you define life?
속, 근데 속은 먼저 그랬어. 들어 먼저 그때 시간을 줘 그랬어. 내 시간을 줘. 들어라 그랬어.
또 속에다 그래. 간지 샘지는 초. 샘지는 가진 초. 다 속에 매는 간다 시스. 근데 속에 와는 따뜻하게 간 시바지 그랬어. 너무 다 너무 심하지 시라고 하나? 속에 와이나? 근데 속 써야 돼 간지 맞지. 코로나도 시바 말이나요. 속 대사서 가는 거. 손지까지 루 쇼게 다 시바지 그래서. 근데 루트까지 넣어주면 아니 된다 시고 그 시바도 같이 보면 잘.
So according to Buddhism, if there is a life, there is a mind. Can't have a life without a mind. Anyway, so it's it's the breath, right? The breathing, the breath, that upon which the mind or consciousness is mounted, on that mind, on that breathing. So when the consciousness leaves and then that breathing stops, and then you put that's death. So as long as the mind is there, and the air is flowing, and the person or the being is breathing regularly, normally, then that is alive. There is a life there. But when that stops, then it's dead. That's how we define, according to Buddhism.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I think that
Life is breathing, is alive.
yeah.
But plants breathe.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there is breath in plants,
Right.
but they don't have mind. Yeah.
They may have plant mind. Plants may have plant mind. Sentient beings have sentient being minds.
Which,
But they're not sentient beings according to Buddhism.
I'm sorry?
I-
Yeah,
they're not-
exactly, and that's my point.
Yeah.
So the thing is, plant may have a plant mind, we just don't know it.
샘지는 가려고 그러죠.
So what is sentient being?
Sentient being is with consciousness.
yeah, something that has a mind.
근데 얘들 다 되는 저도 돼.
So anybody with a consciousness is sentient being?
The mind, yeah, I think so.
근데 다 되는
No.
저도 돼.
No, it depends on the level of the consciousness. If I went out and got
So,
mud,
okay, can you give me an example of someone who has a consciousness and who is not sentient being?
I can't. Well, all I could say is, for myself, when I lose consciousness, if I get knocked out, and I don't die, my body still continues to function. There's a
Well,
consciousness,
but there is a consciousness there, right, inside.
right?
Yeah.
Which is subtler.
Yeah, subtle consciousness there.
and
The
when I-
gross one has gone to sleep for
Right.
at that time, or
Yeah.
become unconscious.
Right.
But anyway, the example of someone, a person, a being, who has a consciousness but is not sentient being.
I don't know.
Maybe ghosts.
Huh?
I mean, in English that doesn't make sense because sentient means like you have awareness, you have
So
something.
who? And no, I mean I'm saying anybody who has consciousness is a sentient being, right?
Yeah, I think
And so anybody, okay, sentient being, and
Yeah.
that's different. Yeah, that's right. So maybe in Tibetan and English will be different. So in Buddhism, when we say sentient being, is the beings who are not enlightened. So who are not enlightened are sentient beings. Sentient beings are beings who are not enlightened, right? So a being with a consciousness who is not sentient being would be a Buddha. A Buddha has a consciousness, but it's not sentient being because he's an enlightened being. So that's how it's about. I mean, I can maybe in Western definition of sentient being will be different. So,
We look at Buddha as human being. Like Buddha as human being. So therefore, like in our world, we look at
Buddha
as sentient being.
it's hard to say it's human being.
Well, I don't know. What else could it be?
상계된 미래에서 와서.
맞다. 가르마 민나버린 배워라.
He's not extraterrestrial.
Yeah, if you
He's not ET.
He's not what?
Extraterrestrial. From
Oh,
outer space.
he's not that. No, see again, Buddha, how do you define Buddha? Buddha has a Buddha's body, Buddha has speech, Buddha has mind. All those are Buddha, So when you say Buddha's mind is Buddha, Buddha's realization is Buddha, then Buddha's mind is not human being, Buddha's realization is not human being. So in general, Buddhas, like if you say Buddha Shakyamuni, who came in this world about 2,500 years ago, that of course is human being. But in Buddha in general, you can't say, I don't know if you can say that human being.
간지마저만도 남배에게 지나 싸도 희가 단지 소유가 말이 그냥 말했어.
So according to Buddhism, there's no life or consciousness in plants and trees.
그래서 딱 걔네 또 방자래서.
유지셔.
그러나 소도 희가 희나다가 저들이 냐요 말이야. 소도 되는 저들이 냐고 그랬어. 그러나 생전이 봐요. 좋아. 좋아.
So if they have a life or consciousness, then they should have feeling also. So the plants don't have feeling. But again, you will say they have a feeling, right?
No, I don't think they do have
No?
feeling. No.
No, they don't say.
가래에서는 삼성도 희가 나로 고셔도 희는 마치고 그건 그 제대 지금 마상 그 마시고.
So if you cut some part of the root of that tree, the tree will die, right? We call it die, but it will fall. And when that happens, that's because of some cause and condition missing for it to stand up, right? So that's why it falls.
어떤 데다 간지 담아도 남들과 신을 속에 박혔어. 도도 마치와 간지 속에 박혀야 되는 거죠.
So anyway, so in Buddhism, according to Buddhism, there's no life, in the plants and trees.
아니 나고 많이 get듯이 가지고 신화 속에 가나 고나 틀어놓은 건 여기도 와서 니마 파 예루살렘은 내도 파 가서로 쇼게 같이 온다고 그랬어.
So there are some kind of trees, that kind of, when their leaves and branches shrink, in the nighttime, and then when it becomes in the daytime, then they all open up, they rise and open up. And so some non-Buddhist scholars, they said that, that kind of plant has a mind because it shrinks and sleeps in the nighttime. So that's the reason. That's their reason for believing that there is a mind, in that kind of plants.
Well, could it be said to have consciousness? I mean, it has I just think it's a distinction kind of without a difference. It does live and it functions as a living thing, but it doesn't have awareness.
It doesn't have awareness, yes.
It depends how you define live. I think that's the main thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's...
I mean, for us, I think in our culture, to be alive doesn't require that you have a mind.
Yeah.
Because in biology, we have plants and animals. Like those are the two, groups of living things on Earth.
Things, yeah.
So they don't have consciousness as a defining characteristic of life. You don't have to be conscious to be alive. So
That's why for them, eating animal is same as eating vegetables, right?
I don't know about that. But I'm sure there are plenty of vegetarian biologists.
There are some plants that eat animals too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not plants, maybe.
No.
They look like a plants, but they're not really
Oh,
plants.
they're plants.
Then if they're not plant, they must have mind.
They don't have mind. They're plants, but they do eat animals and insects.
Really?
Some-
Yeah,
Really?
they're plants. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes.
This is not planet.
It is a plant.
Oh, it is a plant.
It is a plant.
See, that's what Buddhism would say. That's not plant. If it is animal.
When we say eat, we call it eat because we are human and we understand when something puts something inside to digest it or
Yeah, so
metabolize
it
it
thrives
to
on
grow.
that, right? It thrives on the eating.
Right, but you won't say like, for example, by the same token, rain goes down to the ground and then the roots suck it up. you could say they drink. You know, they are
That's
drinking.
right, yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't mean that they are like the same as me and you drinking.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
function of that plant,
Yeah, yeah.
Just by design.
not by design. But
Yeah, it's it is by design that the plant eats the insects. It's by design.
So yeah, so then what is the definition of life then in Buddhism? Like, so they define, like in biology, life is defined as a being which is produces and grows
and metabolize.
and
it.
and eats, you know, like takes nutrition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these three things is definition of life, and plants also. That's why plants
They
are
do that,
alive,
so that's
and
why they-
animals are alive. So what's the definition of life?
Well, like Geshe said earlier, you know, that the mind, there is a mind, there has to be a mind, and there's a flow of the breath.
So mind and flow of breath.
Breath, yeah.
is
So there's
definition
the flow
life.
of breath, you know, upon which the mind is mounted.
That's
The mind
life.
is mounted on that breath, and then, you know, that as long as that mind is there and the breathing is there, then, you know, person is alive.
Yeah.
You know. And if there's no mind, you know, the breathing stops, and there's no life.
By flow of breath, you mean prana
Yeah.
Pran, yeah,
or chi.
whichever you call it.
Yeah, anyway, you have to little bit
Pran is same as life, right? So that's
investigation also a little bit.
John
check
had the-
things that come to be very high here that we don't know the basic Dharma things. 다시나 뭐야 다들 다 들라면 다 있는 것도 다 요즘은 바로 이러와 간지 맞지 다 나베 힘도 다 드시려까지 선택해야 말이야. 와 얘도 소외가 캐나 말이야. 내 나베 다 그렇게 지겠어.
So anyway, so Buddhism don't accept that there is a mind or life in the plants and plants and trees.
이제 저 되지. 간지 내시에서 못다봤어야 돼. 간지 저도 깨나는 진로 위는 따로 못다봤어. 와.
So the impermanence, you know, is something that disintegrates moment by moment, but depending on cause and conditions.
아니 얘가 이게 저도 깨나는 지야 능에 달라. 아니 다 봤어.
So that which exists but doesn't disintegrate or perish by perish moment by moment. So that which exists but doesn't disintegrate is impermanent. I mean, is permanent. So that which exists but and also disintegrate is impermanent.
다빠이나 매로지면요 집 가서 매와 처리 명이요 말까. 매와 매로지다 다빠이나 이면까지 매와 처리를 해요. 이럴 저는 저런 내가 처리 말씀.
So if the permanent thing can become non-existent also, it can become non-existent.
그러나 값도 짜서와는 값도 돈이 넣어서 이거 말았어.
And so the impermanent. So the permanent thing can become non-existent, can cease to exist, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't. Doesn't mean that that is disintegrating. It's not disintegrating by some conditions. So, for example, if there's the emptiness of the cup, right, or the space inside the cup, the space inside the cup, is not there. It will not be there if the cup is broken, right? If the cup is broken, the space inside the cup is gone also. So the space in the cup was permanent, right? But when there's no cup, there's no space inside the cup.
The
So-
same emptiness too, right?
So yeah, so that's the.
Emptiness of the book.
So emptiness, so the emptiness of the cup, is permanent. So, but when the cup is gone, the emptiness of the cup is gone also.
스타트 좀 하고 있지. 봐. 말 내가 무슨 상태 밑에 다빠이는 다 지금 딱 내어지는 자리 내어를 선두고 대어서 내어줘.
So sometimes people think that if it's permanent, then it's there all the time. It will never become non-existent. So it's not true that.
뭐야, 그렇지. 네. 당하도 다른 데 가서 당하도 하면 사실 막 대선 로이 들어와. 그래서 싫어서.
So now we go through
When we stop before,
the.
we finish Gomlan.
I don't think so.
다 들어 집어야 가자. 곰봉하다가 다 곰봉에 아니 녀도 뉴어는 공부를 녀도 주는 것이 말했어.
We are the gompang, aren't we?
야.
Yeah.
아니 이봐 공부가. 동발라 아니 녀도 자도 중요시. 와 공발라 아니 녀도 자도 점시 말했어.
So in the
주는 것이 말했어.
the abandonments to be abandoned on the path of meditation have only judo,
공부는 뭐지?
only 16. Whereas the abandonment that to be abandoned on the path of seeing, the afflicted obstructions to be abandoned on the path of seeing, there were 112, right? Yeah. 112. But that is to be abandoned on the path of meditation is only 16. So anyway, whatever you have not been able to abandon in the path of seeing, you abandon in the path of meditation.
다 안에 동벌라 주주지 사람 뭐 가진 거지 빠졌지 너무들한 데비트 되지 아니 저기 되네 저기 공부 되지 저거 다 주주게 해서
On the path of meditation, this is from there within the two questions and observations. The first has 16 because regarding the afflictions to be abandoned on the path of meditation, and which are objects to be abandoned, corresponding to the uninterrupted path of the path of meditation. Of the first ground, there are 6 afflictions that are included in the grounds of the Dharma and 10 that are included in the higher grounds.
다 동거 대신 거 같은데 데비트지 다 적셔다 맞아 봐 지도 다들 다다 그래서
And so the first, there are 6 afflictions included in the grounds of the Dharma. It is established because there are 6 desires that is included in the grounds of the Dharma, which are to be abandoned on the path of meditation of the Mahayana. And those are anger, pride, ignorance, view of detached recollection, and the view apprehending an extreme.
근데 가진 동거집에 내자에 와서 동거 된거좀 내자에 와서
So there was an attachment that is to be abandoned on the path of seeing, right?
그래서 나는 동거 가도 그런 거 빠져야게 나한테 빠르게 되나요? 다 뭐나까지 빠마다 다 도저히 나도 와서 근데 도저 잘못이 이제 와서
So I think the attachment is missing here, right? There's no attachment, right? So yeah, so there should be attachment. There's attachment that is, the attachment that is abandoned on the path of seeing is what they can abandon. But then there's maybe some subtle attachments that are not abandoned on the path of seeing, so you abandon them on the path of meditation.
다 시에다 맞아 말지도 단계 다가 좋지 대화를 와라.
So then it says anger, pride, ignorance, view of transcendental recollection, and the view apprehended and extreme. So those are the 6 in the desire.
다 주도 주민이나 세나 밖에나 아니 신발 두지 말이죠. 신망아.
And so in the second, there are 10 that are included in the higher realms. It's established because there are 5 included in the grounds of the form realm, and which are those, and the 5 included in the grounds of the formless realm. So here we're talking about the 5, right? So those 5s, excluding the anger, right? If you exclude the anger, then there are 5. Those 6, yeah, among the 6 in the desire realm, you exclude the anger, and then there's a 5. 5 in the form realm, 5 in the formless realm, so that makes 10 in the higher realm.
뭐지? 다 아니 세나까지 배웠는데 가서 뭐 고로 배워 지금까지 나왔어.
So why do you exclude the anger? It's the same reason earlier. So the reason there is no anger in the higher realm.
그걸로 해봐. 가게 이내가면 다 무게업 잘했어. 고민이 되지 몇 개월 말했어. 그걸 해봐.
So because the reason why why they don't have anger is because if it's anger, it has to be non-virtue, right? It has to be non-virtue by nature. Because there's no non-virtue in the higher realm, therefore there's no anger.
몇 개월 살 때, 레오 나오면 나고, 이제 같이 레오 둥하고, 이렇게 살았어. 몇 개월 살 때.
So non-virtue is that which provides or which produces unpleasant results.
어디시. 근데 다 들면 다 집어린다. 무슨 소리만 그거 린다. 대고되면 작은 거지.
So second, the attendant, yeah, I think it's a similar, following similar reason.
다들 오더라 되는 제나 대회나 사도는 계시 동본 통일하면은 대래 이제 막 계시만 이발아서 다 산이반이 아니 사도만 하더니 돌아가다 그런 게 와서.
So the first, the five included in the grounds of the form is exactly the desire. As the desire which is included in the grounds of the form, pride, ignorance, the view of the identification, and the view of the abandon and stream. The reasoning can be extended to the second, so same to the formless ground, right? And then here now it talks about, from the ornament of illumination, ornament for illumination.
어떻게 어찌라 싶대. 너까지 사 동발라 통하고니 와서 다사 동부 계시니 받아 가지 다 고노 통로 니는라도 대회나 사동부 계시 동부 통연하게 나왔어. 다 사동부도 다 가지 통로나 사동부 고노 사동부라 하는 통로 고노인데 사동부라 그래. 이제 대래 제바다 산이바라서 같이 산이바 되어서 갔다 가지고 고난 받더라 고난을 그래서 도저히 이제 빠지는 거는 대마가 산이지사 그래도 거기에 나타난 쇼크 담아서요 그게 아니 고난을 산이바라서 갔다 그러면 고난을 해서
So when we first reach the part of seeing, right? That's when you become Arya being, and when you become a spiritual being. So in the spirit path, which are the part of seeing and part of meditation. So there are 10 grounds. Right? So the first ground starts from the moment you become a spirit, which is the moment you achieve part of seeing. So the first moment of the part of seeing that you achieve, that's the first ground. And then the first ground goes all through the part of seeing, and then it goes even into part of meditation. That's the part of the first ground in the part of meditation. And then after the second ground, it's all in meditation. All in part of meditation. So second, third, fourth, all the way up to the 10th ground is all in part of meditation. And so this is due to that, the first moment of the first ground is the part of seeing. Other than that, from the second period and so forth up to the uninterrupted part called Vaja, like immediately following, which is the attainment of all the written ground of the Buddha is called the part of meditation. So it's all from the second ground up, it's all part of meditation. This is because all these are realized individually by the differentiating phenomena as the supreme meaning and so forth. So moreover, any of the 16 afflictions are abandoned seriously. Thus, attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, the view of the transseparation, the view of abandon and extreme are the six active in the desire realm. From among these, accepting the anger, 10 are accepting. The 10 are active in the form and formless grounds. So from among these, he said accepting. And that is the second is established because it says in the ornament for illumination through differentiating the phenomena of thorough purification for the path of seeing and meditation, there is presentation of the 10 grounds of the very joyful and so forth. So now we talked about already the afflictions, right? Afflicted obstructions.
What is the second? What is the second? What are we talking about? The second one is established also?
Oh yes, now it's talking about the obstruction to knowledge, omniscience.
Oh, the shaded?
Yeah, shaded. So earlier we talked about the afflicted obstructions.
Oh yeah.
So that is only 16, right?
Yeah,
in the path of meditation. But then when you talk about the obstruction, the second, the obstruction to omniscience, so that they are same as the path of meditation, path of seeing. Here it says now regarding those obstructions to omniscience which are to be abandoned by the path of meditation of the Mahayana, there are 108. So same as the path of seeing, right? because meditation included in the grounds of the desire realm and there are 36 obstructions to omniscience, which are to be abandoned by the path of meditation included in the grounds of the form realm, and which are that, and there are 36 obstructions to omniscience which are to be abandoned by the path of meditation included in the grounds of the formless realm, which are that.
간지 다 내수 되어야나 오늘 간지 시집사야 시집사야 지들이 가서 뭐 시집사야 돼 정말 고마 뭐 잡셔 고 이어 아니 이어라다니 아니 다 정말 잡셔로
So here it says, right, the first there are 36 obstructions to omniscience to be abandoned on the path of meditation, which are included in the grounds of the desire realm, established because there are 9 conceptions about and apprehended to be turned away from that are obstruction to omniscience that are abandoned on the path of meditation, included in the grounds of the desire realm, and 9 conceptions about and apprehended to be engaged. So apprehended to be turned away, and now this is the apprehended to be engaged, and 9 conceptions about apprehenders of substantial existence, and so the 9 conceptions about the apprehenders of imputed existence. So 9 times 4 is 36, right?
근데 다내 쇼지에다 내가 저거를 된다. 나도 이제 내가 놓다. 무슨 그래서 와 아니다 잠깐 오신다. 그런 말을.
So these are just to, go into more detail about each and every obstructions to omniscience. But in general, they are all obstruction to omniscience.
또 되지. 다 사이 요종. 나 생기는데 사이 요종 사이 요소.
The fifth one is what? Distinguishing the methods for thorough purification.
다 사이 요종 사이까지 랑칼라 되게 사디建设 얘네 조금씩 얘대해서 다 사이 요종 생기래서.
So the definition of thorough purification in a ground, it is a good quality that eliminates the faults of that ground for whoever possesses it, and which completes the good qualities. So that's the definition of thorough purification in a ground.
그래서 상세사 동거외지지 니제대 상세사 동거외지지 사이 요종 잡고 있어요.
So Bodhisattva on the first ground, his or her compassion, is a thorough purification in the ground of the first ground.
가르드나 랑칼라데 만나 들이 니제대 가나데베 가나데 사 동거와리. 대지가 가나데 지지 니제대 고마에나 아니 랑지지게 사도 용해 공도 패러와. 아니 견서 파세로 와서.
So because that compassion in his mind is a good quality, right? It's a good quality. So we're just trying to see whether it meets all the criteria for being a thorough purification in the ground, in the first ground. So the good quality is a good quality, and if you keep on meditating on that, then it eliminates the faults, right? And so faults of the person whoever possesses that correct compassion, and it completes the good qualities. So it has all these parts of the definition. So therefore you can say that compassion in the mind of the Bodhisattva on the first ground is a thorough purification in the ground.
그래서 다들 그 예스로 사통문에 같이 받아서 대단한 거죠. 사통문에 도와봐 그 조합을 이용해서.
And so it says when it's divided, there are 9. So now again talking about the thorough purification in the first ground, thorough purification in the second ground, third ground, fourth ground, up to the 9th ground.
아니 조화도 딱 밑에 맞춰야 된다. 그 와도 딱 조화에 맞출 거를 해서 이거. 얘는 그라도 그와 대해서는 딱 조화에 맞게 줄 거를 줄 때 그랬어.
So it says that there's why it doesn't talk about the 9th ground, 10th ground, right? Why is there no thorough purification of 10th ground? And so they're saying that that is shown implicitly. It says when there's 9, when it shows 9, the 10th is shown implicitly, not explicitly but implicitly or indirectly shown.
사실 강사 뒤지지 제 세워지 이게 저 같이 가다지 이해되지라 다 뒤용 세용용스러워.
And so anyway, any kind of quality in that person's mind that that eliminates the false in that person's mind and that increases the quality, good qualities in that person's mind is Tara purification.
그래서 동고에 다 살 그거 봐야지. 양용은 만용 장만용 저 뜻 말하고 이래서.
And so now there are different number of Tara purifications in depending in each ground. So the first ground have a certain number of Tara purification, and second ground has different number of and third ground and so forth.
내가 들으려고 가지 사회 요조 세바디 다 랑 가나되면 강사되잖아. 예, 마음에 와치 얘들이 제어시를 강사되지. 시집스면 얘들이라 이거
And so anyway, the Tara purification ground in a ground is the good quality that eliminates the faults of that ground for which whoever possesses it and which completes the good qualities. So that's the definition, right?
Okay. 다 들으려고 그래. 되게 이세스케 라인이다. That's that. Then maybe we'll stop. You have any questions? Then we have one more class. Right?
Yeah.
For the children. And I think this is the last class, 2000. Right? Because I'm coming back 2012.
Yeah. But you're coming back to this, right?
Oh, then probably that.
Oh, we're gonna finish it next week?
We're almost to the end.
We're gonna finish next
2011 and 2012 not permanent, so it doesn't matter.
We have to do long.
week? Yeah.
We're almost to the long section. It's good. We should keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just doing soft so far.
We haven't gone to the last yet.
No.
It's still not done.
So then we have to, if he doesn't continue, we should retitle the class soft. Come to the soft class.
월미까지 미들 장갑을 찌바찌바 미들 찌바찌바 하는 거. 나 주마만 투자해. 아래 산이 뒤에 가다지 못하게 그렇게 거. 아니.
So let's see how much we can go through next week. And
나도
after that, then we'll see.
이 가르나 이게 남주 가디 가르쳐나게 가르쳐 늘려쳐야 되지. 가르쳐 때문에 야고 시야 지르게 딱 나한테 그랬어.
I think we can finish the grounds.
Huh?
We can finish the grounds next week.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so we're going through slowly so that it'll be more stable in your mind, not rushing through.
네, 로도는 어디 맞지게 그런 말로 그러네. 그 대체적으로 생각되는
If we
거죠.
just rush through, then we can just get it all done in one day.
가르러 가는 가르나 야네 야지 아주때 양조 야네 양조가 야네 야네 나는 나도 지금 때문에 잘하고 그래. 이 지대 들어는 게 가래 지금 해야 돼.
So if we keep on, talking about that again and again, then that becomes more stable in our mind. And for that reason, I go slowly.
네, 지금 아직도 저거 피니시 컬리지 제거는 나도 저거 되게 나.
So if you're in a rush to get a degree on Salam, then it will go fast.
네. 그래서 가지고 나도 가래 거는 너무 쉬고
You're not going to get a degree here anyway.
나도 그거
So
쉬고.
for us, what is important is to know, to understand, right? That's the most important.
다 람도 강시 람도 곰도 마고 빠지는 소소시 그래.
And once you have known it, whether you meditate on it or not, it's all entirely depends on you.
네. 아니 주마가 가서 그러시지.
Right? So
Okay, do any
we'll
question?
go through as much as we can next time.
나도 저거 지금 저거 들는 거는 못 붙이는데 또 배도 좀 다리라도 져야 막 그래서 한번 거기 왔어.
So we did a lot of discussion earlier, right? So that's good. We never think about it, those things before, right? Usually.
Sometimes also we usually best class was high level class. Everybody it's a high level class also everybody think about the working out that. Therefore maybe we easy ones we don't discussion we don't pretension then.
So there are many which we don't understand.
Therefore, we have some after everybody we to discuss this
in the view of, I forgot what are the transition, the view of transition in collection and the view of apprehending an extreme. Explain what they were, like view of transition in collection.
다다. 그거랬어.
직다. 직다 세대 간제마지 딱 강사 나도 나한테 얘기해. 와, 그렇게 되고 있습니다. 말이 맞지. 다다 다니고도 이때 강소한테 다다래 대테라 그러지.
So the view of transitory collection, is actually apprehending or viewing in a person or a thing as existing self-sufficiently or substantially.
From the
Person existing as a person, as is the self of a person. So apprehending a person as existing, existing self-sufficiently or substantially.
Okay.
So that's the view of transitory collection. And then the view of apprehending as extreme, is like, so since whatever you view with the view of the transitory collection is right. That is the right, that's the correct thinking. That is the extreme.
야, 나 간제마지 나야다 간제마지. 직다 강 소화돼 땅한테 딱 야보 대받들지 말이야. 아마 좀 그래. 다다 대려서 다다 대려서.
이거 다다 내가 다서 다들 말해. 다들.
그냥 다다. 대 밑에
저런 갈래.
이게 나야 지금. 따원 주세요.
나오죠.
다다래도 아니 따다를 제대로 들리지 봤어. 다다래도
So extreme, like you go into the extreme. When you go to the extreme, like you say, oh, if it exists, it has to exist from its own side. And if it doesn't exist from its own side, then it does not exist at all. So like that have the extreme of nihilism, and extreme of eternalism.
The view of the transitory collection is like not necessarily a intellectual view, right? The other one, the extreme view, is intellectual, but the transitory collection one is not necessarily intellectual.
집가병원도 때가서 군다이고 말했어. 이나 다 탑다들은 군다이고였어.
다다래. 다다 내제라 따바도 제바다가 좀 맞. 제바서 봐.
I mean, how do you say that? Yeah, it's
직다 세워도
lanky, right? Yeah.
직다 세워도 다 내맞지.
Neither
나도 가지고
yeah, they have kurukulla and lanky.
직다는 이제였어. 다다 세워도 다 이거 따다 들지 마야. 제다 들지 마. 내가 무슨.
이래 군다이고.
다시 그 방법이 나오는 게 들어갔어. 다시 그 기다려 되는 데 들어갔어.
Yeah, could be, yeah.
I was reading Tsongkhapa the other day, and he was saying about the view of the transitory collection. The most important aspect of it is really the lenke.
Yes.
The intellectual view of the aggregates. It's a problem, but not really, that big of a problem because you can get rid of it easily. But the other one is
The
more.
Henge is the more problem.
Yeah, that's like the real.
The innate.
다다를 때 거기서만 내가 공부한 지금 다다 누웠어.
아,
공부한 다다 누워.
아니.
그다음에 다다가 또 거기서 말해.
So maybe again, because there is extreme, right? Because there is the view of apprehending an extreme in the path of meditation, to be abandoned in the path of meditation. So I think not necessarily the kunta.
It should be lanky, yeah.
So that would be Henge,
Yeah.
So not necessary to be, not
What's the
necessarily innate.
innate? Then what's the innate grasping at extremes?
Innate grasping.
The one that you said was intellectual. You said like saying that if something exists, it must exist from its own side. And if it doesn't exist from its own side, it can't exist. That's intellectual.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be intellectual. Why should it be? I mean, some people say,
Because
oh,
that's a that's a intellectual statement. That's like a view that someone says.
No. So
If
like
this, then that. That's
no,
a,
that's the extreme of extreme of existing, extreme of viewing at the things as existing from their one side. That
Just
we
the
have.
perception of
Yeah, we have that naturally, innately, naturally. We don't have to study or anything to have that kind of view.
yeah.
Yeah, we can have that.
Sorry, I just want to tell you, there's two type of views, like the innate and intellectual.
Oh, okay.
Intellectual views are like when you think about how things are and like or are convinced by arguments from someone, and then the innate ones are the ones which you can't help. You're just born and things they seem really real. You know,
You use the Tibetan words. Which one is which?
the Kwintog is the intellectual and Lange is the innate.
Innate.
But they both have contact both.
So the
calculate.
I thought the grasping at extremes seems like only something that would be intellectual, but he's saying that actually since it's among the abandonments on the path of meditation, it should be also innate, because the point of the path of meditation is to get rid of the innate afflictions, which are really that's like the root problem that we're trying to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
You can.
So you understand Ali?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
They wouldn't get.
Okay.
If I don't okay.
Yeah, I need to read it from the beginning. I did that.
Blue one here.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank
Good job. Danny. Okay, it's good. Then. Anyway, very good. I'm very happy studying with you guys. You guys really make efforts to it. I know there's some students are always, take picture. Picture of the world, not impermanent, always there, right? Okay? Good boys, girls.
Okay, page 39. So